All right, so it looks like we're recording. And yeah, again, I'm glad everybody could join us today to learn a little bit about FCS Express 5 and kind of what we've been up to in the last little bit with releasing the software. I wanted to talk a little bit about upgrading customers and the process for doing that for the Nexcelom customers who currently have version 4. I wanted to outline some of the new features, show them in some of the Nexcelom templates that you already have developed, just to get an idea of maybe how some of these features can kind of work their way into the existing layouts that you have, and then also give some essentially basic training for people who may not know how to actually work with FCS Express to create layouts, to create templates, to build and plan templates, to show you how that is done. And then I also wanted to follow up on the end essentially with two items that I've heard a lot about from Nexcelom customers when we've been visiting people in the field to help teach them more about FCS Express. Essentially two of the most common questions that we get that I think people in the field with Nexcelom can probably address and make the customer's life a little bit easier going forward. Two specific features, so I'll kind of come back to that. Just to kind of outline this again, this is what I discussed kind of the agenda for today. So the upgrade process is the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about. And I'm going to bring up our little upgrades page here. So what will probably happen, we've sent out emails to any of the Nexcelom customers who have claimed their copies of FCS Express, and we've given them this information about what it will cost for them to upgrade to version 5. FCS Express 5 is not a free kind of intra-version update, so there is a cost associated with it. And we have this outlined on our website. I'll bring this over just for reference. If you ever need to find where all of this is outlined, you can come here to our What's New section, click on the Check on Your Upgrade Credits, and our upgrade pricing policy page is going to pop up. For Nexcelom customers, the important things that you should note is that any with instrument copies that were claimed on or after May 17th, I should probably put in here 2014 for the recording, will receive 100% of essentially what we consider a purchase credit. So the Nexcelom customer never sees the actual cost of the software, but what we've done is we've said that a customer who has purchased after this date will receive 100% based on an actual purchase. So if they were an academic lab, they would receive $1,300 credit towards purchasing version 5, and if they were a non-academic lab, they would receive a $2,000 credit. What this actually means is when we actually look at the new FCS Express 5 pricing is that the regular pricing is $2,100 and $1,400. So any of those purchases or claims after May 17th, it's $100 to upgrade. So the long and short of that, if they purchase it recently since last CITO, they'll pay $100 to upgrade. Any instrument copies claimed before that date, they'll receive 35% of this original purchase price towards upgrading. So we set May 17th as the cutoff date. That was when we made an announcement for version 5 at CITO in 2014. So any of those customer upgrade requests, I've kind of outlined this down here. You could actually just send them directly to support@denovosoftware.com, and we'll take care of any of the upgrade credits. We have all of this entered in our system with all the people that have claimed copies. So again, you can just kind of forward them our way. Now, if a customer does upgrade to FCS Express 5, it doesn't mean that their version 4 license is invalid. They get to keep that license as well as get the new version 5 license. There'll be new dongles needed for FCS Express version 5. So if the customer is using a dongle license for version 4, and they choose to go with a dongle license for version 5, they will have a version 4 dongle and a version 5 dongle, and they can use both copies on the software on a computer. Now, version 4 layouts will open in FCS Express 5, so there's no need to worry about kind of forward compatibility. All the templates that Nexcelom has developed all work in FCS Express version 5. I confirmed that prior to this meeting as well, just to do a double check. The one issue that you will have is if you open up any FCS Express 5 layouts, save them, and you want to go back into version 4, that's not possible. Just because there's a lot of new features and rewrites of the code in FCS Express 5, so there will not be backwards compatibility from version 5 to version 4. So just to take a quick pause, are there any questions about the upgrades or credits? Really, the long and short is if anybody wants to upgrade, you can just send them to us, and we'll take care of that process. And I think the important thing to note is that we're giving customers credits that have purchased version 4 in the long run here. So are there any questions on that before we move on? Okay. So the next kind of issue here in our agenda is what's new in FCS Express version 5. So again, we're very excited to announce FCS Express 5. Along with version 5, we have a completely reworked website. So if you haven't come to our website in a while to kind of check things out and see where they are, everything is going to look a little bit new. All the kind of same materials are there, except with a lot of new updated content. Including off of our main page here, we have this kind of Learn What's New button, which is going to bring you to the What's New in FCS Express 5 page here. So we just outlined a few topics on the website here that I want to go over quickly and then show you how they actually work in FCS Express 5. One of the big focuses was enhancing our user interface to be up to date with the latest Microsoft Office kind of look and feel. So you're going to notice when we're actually working in the software that we remove the Applications button, we replace it with a File tab option. We have lots of new kind of navigation features within the File tab. Print layout enhancements, navigation enhancements, and things like that. The speed was one of the largest improvements in FCS Express 5. FCS Express 5 is probably on the order of 50 to 100 to 200 times faster in loading data and analyzing data than FCS Express 4. We have a 64-bit version of the software now, so for people who are using 64-bit computers, they can download the 64-bit version of the software. That's going to take into account up to 128 gigabytes of RAM available. So I don't think anybody working with any layouts is going to have any problem with speed of loading these things and analyzing statistics. There's quite a few general usability improvements. This is just essentially a short list of some things that are there. We've added the redo functionality. That's something that everybody has asked for. We've added a lot of new drag and drop functionality for working with bar plots and pie charts to create graphing within the software. A lot of kind of new little options for formatting windows and things like this that we're all going to go over. Another kind of big one is these pie, bar, and scatter with regression plots I'm going to show you in the software. We've made our graphing capability, other than just working with two-dimensional and histogram plots, much better and easier to use in version 5. It was kind of it was a little abstract on how all of this stuff worked in version 4, but as you're going to see today, it's very quick and easy to kind of create these pie, bar, and scatter plots in the software. We've also added a lot of new statistics and ability to work with different types of tokens and custom tokens. So if you're working with any statistics in the software, when you do a right-click on the statistics table, you're going to see a lot of new statistics appearing, as well as the ability to do a lot of statistical tests like t-tests and chi-squared. These are some of the more advanced features. I'm not sure if the Nexcelom customers will be using them, but they are there. You're also going to see a lot of plot enhancements, and that's essentially where we're going to start today, is looking at some of the new plots, plot types, and enhancements to existing Nexcelom templates and layouts. So I'm just going to open up a new I'm going to open up a new layout in FCS Express just to give you a little overview of kind of some of the changes that we've made. The first thing that you'll get when you open up FCS Express now is this startup screen. This is something that we've added. It's kind of a quick reference based off of the Microsoft Windows kind of panels. You can click on any of these things so customers can get a quick access to kind of short videos, jumping to the manual, getting help from us. We're also pushing updates to people, so if you're connected to the internet, our trending updates section here is going to update with kind of whatever is going on and what's new. So, if we release a new update to the software, that will be there. Customers can just click on it and update. If they're not connected to the internet, this will just not fill up. And this is also where customers can come in and quickly open a new layout or open a layout. Essentially, you have a list here of all the recent things that we've done within the software as well. So we'll just move this out of the way. And as you can see, we did away, again, as I mentioned, with the Applications button. We're now working with the File tab. This makes it a little bit more intuitive to find out, say, where your recent documents are. All the kind of things that you'd be used to working with in FCS Express are still here. They're just laid out a little differently. The one thing to maybe note is that our user preferences have now changed to options. That's keeping up with essentially what Microsoft Office has done. They went from using user preferences to calling it user options. All the same preferences are here, it's just under a different name. And again, you can kind of take a look through here if you have some time. You probably won't have time to look through all this, I understand. But there's all the options that you would ever need, and all the preferences are located in this area now. You'll notice in the Home tab we do have some new items here for working with changing page sizes, changing orientations, margins. All of this will apply directly to what's on that layout screen there. This makes it a little bit easier if people want to increase the size of kind of the paper that they're working on. This is something that was kind of hidden away in version 5 that we've made a lot easier. And to kind of go with that, our whole print dialog here has been changed as well, updated to the latest Microsoft Office kind of print layout. So it's going to be a lot easier for people to print things and print the pages that they want, print certain pages, and all of that. In our Insert tab, this is where we handle, again, inserting different types of plots. The few things that you'll notice here is that we now have pie charts, which I'm going to be showing you, and scatter with regression plots. The rest of this has pretty much stayed the same. And really everything else in the tab system here hasn't changed very much. A lot of the major changes are plot enhancements and speed and things that we're going to be talking about coming up now. So let's go through some of the existing Nexcelom templates, and we'll show you a little bit about some of the new features and what we've done. And I have this folder here of quite a few templates, and some of these we're just going to look at for a moment or two. Some of them we'll spend a little bit more detail on. The first one I want to open up is the apoptosis template. You can see here it comes. It's loaded up blank because we have the layout saved without linking to the data. And all I'm going to do here is just drag a data file in here. And this is going to give you essentially the equivalent of a launch file opening this up. So you can see with the apoptosis template and this plot that we have in here, immediately kind of two things pop out. One is we've enabled a feature in FCS Express 5 called density shading, or shade based on density. You can see that here in this purple population, we're actually starting to highlight the density of the population within the plot in the same color as the backgating there. So this is going to automatically give people a better idea of where the populations are kind of focused, and if we had more cells in here, maybe in one of these populations, we'd be seeing that there too. You'll also notice in the upper left here that some of these dots appear very large and blocky. This is actually by design. And what happens here is we enable a feature called emphasize on plots. And if we reach a threshold of 2%, these plots or these dots are going to update to show us where they are. And it gets very useful when you're starting to work with kind of low numbers of cells and populations, which you quite frequently encounter, I guess, with imaging data. We're going to, again, kind of pop out where those cells are so you can see them on any plots. Now, something else you may be noticing as I'm moving this marker around is that we now have live updating of backgating, of gates, of statistics throughout the software. And as I mentioned, version 5, FCS Express 5, the speed has been sped up incredibly. So this allows us, as you see, as I'm going to move this quadrant around, you can watch the statistics, you can watch the backgating, the emphasizing here, all on the fly. It's updating for us in real time. This really just goes to show you how quick things are, that we can be calculating all of these statistics, changing the display of these live on the screen. You don't have to actually set that marker and then move away to get that live updating. So we worked actually very, very hard on that to get that to work, and it's something we're kind of very proud of to be able to work that quickly with data. So moving on to the autophagy template here, we'll open this up.
Sean, can I ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
The 2% population data, is it possible to take off the enhancement feature, or is it automatically built into the software that any population under 2% will automatically get blocked?
This is something that we can turn on, and I'm going to come back and show you where this is. I'll give you just a quick look. I'm going to double click on this plot to bring up the formatting tab here, and it's essentially it's an option that I have here. See if I can't find it. I think it's in my overlays. Emphasize low frequency populations. So this is not by default. This is just something I turned on to show us that. And if I turn that off, you can see that it will actually remove that. So again, the shading based on density and the emphasize, the plots, these are just some things to highlight what's new in version 5. It's nothing that's default or that is being pushed to customers yet.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. So again, I'm just bringing up that autophagy template, and again to stress, these aren't things that have been put out to Nexcelom customers yet. This is just an example of some of the new features in version 5, and that's kind of what we're going for, at least in this portion of this talk. Another feature that we've added in FCS Express 5 is histogram transparency. So when we're working with overlays on histograms, in the past it would just be a solid fill or it would be no fill. We can now add a fill with transparency, and it gets very nice because we can actually see when we actually create an overlay with histogram transparency where our marker is moving right in relation to the actual histogram itself. So again, we can move these around. We can highlight the regions that we want to include in our marker. We've done this on both sides as well. So this makes it a little bit easier for the user when they're actually adjusting markers to figure out where these marker boundaries are. I also wanted to highlight here real quickly, if I undo these changes, this is the redo button that we added here, just Control Y to access it. So if you want to get back any of the changes that you've undid, it's been a feature that people have been asking us for forever. Going to the cast-based layout here, and we'll let this open up. All right. So again, we're looking at the histogram transparency here. When we're working with two markers on top of each other, you can see that we're going to actually show the overlapping portion quite nicely. And if we have a third kind of overlay in this histogram to show the total population, we can highlight that. Now, I think one of the important things to note, what I've added in this layout, is we now have the ability to work with pie charts and bar charts directly within FCS Express. The pie charts are new. The bar charts we had, but we've made it much easier to actually work with these items in the software. If, say, on a bar chart you now want to change one of the axis labels, you can simply click on that little label, and if we want to call this the negative population, you can see it's going to, let me click on that again. I just have to check this button here to accept the change. You can see it's actually going to update right on the bar plot there. With bar plots, we've made it very easy to actually insert statistics now for these things. If I wanted to grab this total population and add it to the bar chart, I can just drag it and drop it, and you can see that that bar is going to be added there. I dragged it underneath so it adds it as a new series, and if I actually just dragged it right onto the bar chart here, it's going to add it directly in there. Now again, all these are going to update in real time for us. The pie charts work exactly the same way with this drag and drop. If I wanted to drag the statistic on here, I can just drag it on and it's going to add it directly into my pie chart. And again, I'm going to show you how you can build these up from scratch in a little while. But they're very useful tools. And I found a nice way to use pie charts I thought was using some of the cell cycle layouts. When you know that you're looking at kind of specific ratios of populations every time, you're looking at G0, S phase, G2. When we load this up into the layout with a pie chart here, we now get a nice breakdown of what's going on with our G0, our G2, and our S phases. And again, we're getting some live changes or some live updating. And if we were to add, see if I can't grab the other data file here. We'll pop it in there. If we add that second data file in the data list, we can quickly and easily just kind of compare using, rather than just using the histograms and the numbers, we get a nice visual representation using these pie charts to look at these things. Now, I brought up the data list real quickly as well, just to show one other feature here. We are going to talk about working with the data list a little bit. In the past, when you're working with the data list, you kind of had to use these next and previous buttons to navigate through different files. We've added now this iteration column, and if we want to change between different files in our data list, we can actually just click on the iteration that we want to skip to, we call it an iteration. It's just the file in the file list that you want to skip to. So if we had 10 different data files here, we could easily kind of skip between working with all of them. So again, I thought that was a kind of nice way of working with some of that cell cycle data. We're starting to see a lot of people using pie charts for that sort of thing. So I'm just bringing up now the GFP propydian iodide viability. Again, we're looking at the shade base on density here. And another thing that we've enabled is that when we create gates on a plot, we can actually have this emphasize on plot feature enabled, and this is kind of going around that 2% rule. It's just saying any of the events that fall within this gate, we will emphasize them on the plot. So if you know you have a gate that has a low frequency population, you know that it's above 2%, and we always want to be highlighting that. You can essentially click on any of these gates and choose emphasize on plots, and you're going to see that these emphasis kind of dots get bigger for you. So again, just focusing on low frequency populations using these things. The other item that we had in here again was the bar charts. I thought this again was a nice way to kind of represent where we're looking at a total viability and GFP positive and minus populations. And we're going to open up the CBA dual expression template here rather quickly. All right. So you can see here one change that I made to this, besides the density with shading, I think it looks very nice on a black background. It really highlights what you can see here. But what I wanted to focus on is when you're creating templates and you want to use something like a black background on a plot, you want to use white quadrants and you want to use white kind of ticks and markers. It's kind of a more modern style for working with some of these plots. In the past, in version 4, you had to go through and format all these plots one by one. What we can do in version 5 now is right-click on this plot and say, save this as a plot theme. And when we do this, we give this a name. We call it black background. We'll click OK. In our FCS Express user options, we now have an option in our plot settings to use a theme. So I can say use this black background theme, and what this will do is anytime I insert a new plot, maybe we'll choose a density plot for this one. You notice it's going to use that black background. It's going to use any of the formatting options that I had set up for that plot on this new plot. So this gets into kind of creating layouts and creating different kind of plots and plot types and changing the formatting of how all that looks. So when you're building these things, it becomes a little easier to build them up. Any of these options, any of these plot options can also be managed here with our manage user themes, and I'm just going to actually delete this theme so I don't have to worry about it there anymore, and that's gone. And if you created a really nice theme for working with a plot, you can even send it to other people. So somebody else, maybe you have a user that wants to do something like this, you could actually save this as a plot theme, send it to the user, and then they'll be able to kind of recreate this on their end. And I think I had one more one more template here to take a look at, which was the CBA dual expression. And we'll bring this up. And with this one, I just really wanted to highlight this emphasize on plots here. You can see here that whatever backgating that we have associated with this emphasize dots on layout, it's going to take effect, and again, it's going to be updated in real time. This one seemed like a good one to use this because it seemed like there was always this kind of small population on the lower right. I'm not sure if that's something of interest for your customers, but it is something to kind of highlight those features. So that's just some updates as I saw might fit working into some of the templates that already exist, and kind of how highlighting how fast FCS Express 5 is, some of these new plot types and ways to work with them. The other thing that you'll notice here is that we actually have quite a few layouts open at this point, and we're getting no slowdown in the amount of speed that when working with these things. So we've seen in the past working with Nexcelom customers, they'll generally have open a lot of layouts to work with data. They're not going to ever notice any kind of slowdowns with working with them now. So I'll take this moment before we actually go over creating some layouts and how to access a lot of these new features. Are there any questions that anybody had before we move forward actually creating some layouts?
I have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
If we have these current templates, say say a customer has FCS Express 4, mm-hmm. and we have the template that was created in FCS Express 4, but they open it in 5 and have a data set and they save the data and they embed the data. Can that be then opened in 4, or no, once it's saved in 5, that's it?
Once they have saved it in 5, they will not be able to open it in version 4.
So they won't be able to not to even manipulate it, but just to even open it. It won't open in 4, right?
Yes, once it's been saved in 5, okay. it can't be opened in 4.
Okay,
and what will happen is, we actually do give a warning. So if somebody had, say, upgraded the version 5 and they open up a layout that they had analyzed a while ago, and they try and save it as embedded, the user will get a message. A message will pop up from FCS Express saying that this layout was created in version 4. Are you sure you want to resave this, because you won't be able to open it in version 4 again? So we've kind of tried to put that in there. We did that when we upgraded from version 3 to version 4 as well, just to kind of give the user the last check to let them know that they should either maybe save this with a new name rather than kind of overwriting the file that they had there.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions right now, I'm just going to go over essentially how to create a layout within FCS Express, essentially kind of how these templates were initially built, going over a sort of high-level overview of how that works. The data I'm going to be working with here is the CBA apoptosis data. Again, this is what the Nexstat files are, what are exported along to be launched within the launch file in FCS Express. And what I'm going to do is actually just come in here and say, let's insert a color dot plot. And FCS Express is going to prompt you what you actually want to insert in that plot in terms of data. You'll have to choose from the Nexcelom files, the NXDAT files here, and then you can come in wherever that data was exported to. You can come in and find that data, choose it, and click Open. And it's going to be inserted just like a file in Microsoft PowerPoint. Now what you can see happen here was I actually didn't change my user theme there back to the default. So I'll do that. And we'll come in here again and create that plot, choose the file, and now we're going to be using that, that new default. When you have a plot in FCS Express, again, you can move it around and resize it just like you would do in PowerPoint. So the idea here is if anybody's ever used a PowerPoint presentation, which I'm sure they have, they can start working in our software. You can pick and choose between any of the parameters that have been acquired on the instrument. So if we want to look at size versus the major axis here in microns, we can set that up. And when we create gates in the software, there's a few ways of doing it. One is we can create this gate. We can choose ellipse, rectangle, polygon, or freeform. We click on the layout, we draw our gate, and then we're going to be prompted with this create new gate dialog. And we can name that gate, we can give it a different color. And this is also one of the locations that you can choose that emphasize on plots. So we've created that gate. We automatically have the statistic associated with that gate being displayed, and again the live updating as I move this gate around to adjust that statistic in the backgating. Now to create a new plot, we can actually just drag this gate out and drop it. You'll notice that the gate that we dragged and dropped out is going to be applied to that plot. And in our gating tab, we're going to highlight which gate is applied. So if I pick and choose between the RCells gate and the new gate, we can see which one is applied. Once we have this set up, we can pick and choose which axis we want to use, or which parameters we want to use for the axes. And you can see here that we're defaulting to use a linear scale. And what we've done, or what's been developed in the Nexcelom templates, is to use a different scaling than the default. And if you ever want to come in and change the scaling, you can actually just double click on a plot now in FCS Express and the formatting tab will open. One of the options here is axis, and this is where you can come in and change that axis. So I know that these are best scaled with log with negative. One of the improvements to version 5 is actually how we deal with the X and Y axes. If you've ever come into this window in version 4, you'll probably notice that this looks quite different. And it's much easier to come in and kind of make changes now to any of the axis scaling options. So I'll click OK. And you can notice now that the data has been kind of stretched out a little bit, and it's easier to kind of view and display now within this makeup. Now, when we want to create quadrants on a plot, we just click on the Quadrants tab, click on the plot, and then the quadrants will be created. These quadrants, again, can be moved around in real time. And what you may notice in some of the Nexcelom templates is that quadrants are what is called linked to a gate. And it means that whenever we move a quadrant, a gate updates at the same time that moves with that quadrant. The way that this is handled is by right-clicking on the plot and choosing Convert Quadrants to the Gate. And say if we wanted to convert the upper right quadrant to a gate, we say Convert and Link. And we will call this UR for upper right. And let me make these dots just a little bit bigger here. And you'll notice that they're now appearing in blue, and as we move this quadrant around, they're appearing in blue because they belong to that upper right quadrant gate now. At any time, you can come in and insert what's called a gate view, and this is going to allow us to see any of the gates that we've actually created in the layout. So as you can see, we've created the R cells gate and the upper right gate there. Now, one of the other new enhancements in version 4, in version 5, again, is what I mentioned, working with pie charts and working with bar charts. It's now very quick and easy to work with these plot types. If we wanted to insert a pie chart, we simply create that pie chart. You notice it's blank. And what we can do is grab statistics from anywhere in the software, drag it into the pie chart, and it's going to start populating a pie chart based on that data. So if we actually wanted to build up a pie chart based on the 3 populations here, we simply drag and drop onto the pie chart, and this is being created for us. And again, since we dragged and dropped these and they're from a statistic on a plot, I guess we have a little Pac-Man going on here, but we can actually, as we move these, they'll update in real time. And again, the same is going to go for the bar charts. Now that I created a pie chart, it knows the data essentially that I want to put in there. But any new data that you want to add to a bar chart, again, you can just drag it onto the plot. And if I drag it towards the bottom here, we'll add it as a new series. You can always add series here by just dragging and dropping. You see it's going to highlight which series we're going to add it to, and then it will pull it in to that bar chart. So again, this is very quick and easy to create now. In version 4, it took a little bit of time to do this. We've also added this ability to work with scatter with regressions. I'm going to set this up based off of the raw data. Let me actually change the overlay here. And you can see here that we've actually created a regression line directly on this plot. And this is all the raw data that's come from the instrument. As I adjust our gates, you can see that we have a live updating regression curve for this data. Let's look at FL1 versus FL2. So if you're looking for some sort of linearity in the data, we can do that. If you double-click on this plot, we can actually come in and change which regression fits we'll be using in that plot. So just like you were working with this data in Excel, where you could come in and choose different kinds of regression fits for working with data, we can do that as well. You see when I apply a sigmoidal fit, it changes how that fit looks, and it's also going to calculate any of the statistics associated with the regression. So again, these are getting into some of the more advanced features, but I think it's something that everybody should know that is now in the toolbox that works very much like Excel. So if there's any of these kind of linearity type assays that people are doing, you can either try and work on it yourself with them, or you could just know that it's there and forward them on to the team on our side, and we can help them out with that. So let's actually take away a few of these plots. One of the other items I wanted to show you was working with histograms and histogram transparency. So let's actually look in here, and we will add a overlay to this plot by dragging and dropping. And we also need to come in here, if you remember, we have to format this axis to be a log with negative. You can see there. You can notice that in our overlays command now, we've actually added the ability to move our overlays up or down. This is something we didn't have in version 4. So if we actually wanted to reorder the way that these are stacked on top of each other, we can do that. And when we want to fill these and we want to change the transparency, it's all located here again in this overlays category. So if we wanted to come in and actually make these transparent histograms, we smooth the plots a little bit. You can see now that we have that transparency layer being added to the plots, and it's a very effective way of looking at kind of multiple overlays for data. So along with this, I also wanted to mention some of the items for custom tokens in FCS Express 5. As always, custom tokens are in our little View tab. They're in the Custom Tokens dialog. For anybody who has worked with any of the Nexcelom templates and didn't know where some of these custom statistics that are being generated, like ratios, are coming from, they're all handled from within this Custom Tokens window. We actually work just like Microsoft Excel, where we create a custom token, and we can say maybe this equals 2 plus 2. And of course it's going to calculate to 4. So we can work just like any sort of calculator or graphing calculator within FCS Express. But the really nice thing here is we can actually start dragging in statistics. Maybe we want to drag that statistic in, and we want to say that it's actually going to come from this plot. We now have that statistic showing in our custom statistics window. But if we want to create a ratio, we can just put a little division sign at the end of this, drag in another statistic. Again, we're just going to come in and change where that statistic is being derived from. We're going to say it's coming from this second plot. And what we now have is a live updating ratio of these two values as they update for us here. Now in version 5, we've added some new custom token, what we call display types. I'm going to add in essentially what I'm calling a normalizing factor, and I'm going to say it equals 5. And just to highlight this, I'm going to insert the normalization factor in here in our custom token. Okay, so our custom token now is going to be based off of not just this live updating ratio. Also, if we were to come in here and change this normalization factor, that custom token is going to update for us as well. Now, I know that Nexcelom likes to kind of hide some of these advanced features from the users just to make it easier for them so they don't have to come in and actually type in numbers and things like that and work with these custom tokens. So one thing that we've added now is instead of kind of making you have to work with this custom tokens window, you can actually just right-click on this custom token and choose Format. And instead of using the label, we can say, let's use what we call an edit box. And when we have an edit box, we're actually able to edit this token directly within the layout. So we can actually have this edit box up here, and whatever we put in that token box is going to update the custom token. It kind of happens seamlessly without the user having to do anything to update custom tokens. Another kind of nice display type that we have here is what we call a drop-down list. So if we had a series of different normalization factors that we'd ever want to choose from, we can actually just add them to a drop-down list. And actually, I know we have a bug here with GoToMeeting, but the drop-down list is actually appearing over here on the right. When we're not on GoToMeeting, that should be appearing in the correct place. And as we pick the custom token there, you can see it's updating there for us in real time. So again, very kind of quick and easy and more intuitive ways to work with custom tokens now. And if anybody wants to work these into layouts or templates, just let us know. We can kind of run through this again with you because again, I know we're doing this very kind of quickly today. Now, two items I kind of wanted to touch on that go along with the layout that we have open, and another one are essentially batch processing and working with a cell cycle analysis. Let me open up this CBA apoptosis layout again. And let's talk a little bit about how batch processing works in the software and essentially why I kind of want to discuss it today a little bit. So when a customer acquires a data file and they export and they launch the launch file to open up FCS Express, it's equivalent of essentially opening a data file in what's called the data list. And you can see that this is what the customer will get, and they'll get one file per layout. And one thing that we've been noticing when we go to visit customers on site who are using FCS Express is that they'll have essentially one layout open for as many different data files that they have. So if they've acquired 20 different data files on the CBA Vision, they'll have open 20 different layouts, and then they'll be trying to print these out or compare them side by side, just kind of by opening layouts side by side. one thing I would just wanted to show to everybody is that instead of just working with layouts side by side, even with a launch file or a layout that's open with a launch file, any number of files can be added to this data list. So if I choose my second data file and drag it into the data list, you notice that it appears and that the layout hasn't yet updated. But I can now use the next and previous buttons to navigate between the two different files, or I could actually just click on the little iteration number here, which is going to allow me to jump between one data file and the next. So I'm finding a lot of time when we're working with these customers, we show them this feature. They really enjoy it. They seem to think that it's making their life a lot easier, that they don't have to compare data files across many different layouts. So I just wanted to make that aware to everybody that this is a feature that we can do in here, and we can use next and previous to skip between these data files. And to go along with this, we have a whole batch action section of FCS Express. To kind of quickly explain this, what it will do is whatever batch action we add here, it's going to complete that action for as many data files as we have in the data list. So if somebody had opened a launch file and it only has one data file in the data list, they could add as many data files as they want. They could come up here and say, save to PowerPoint. And essentially all they do is they create a PowerPoint document somewhere. We'll just call this test. Click Save. And what will happen now is this batch action is set up so that when we run our batch process, it will export all the data files that we have in our data list to separate slides in PowerPoint. This also works with a lot of the other reports that we have in here if we wanted to export to Excel. This is very kind of quick and easy. We just say create an Excel spreadsheet. We'll call it test. And what we haven't told FCS Express is what to export to the spreadsheet yet. But it's very quick. We can just say maybe we want the live cells population now going out. We want the apoptotic fraction going out. And maybe we want to actually put in the sample ID. So all this can be done just by dragging and dropping. And if we put the sample ID at the top here, this is the order that those statistics will go out. So we'll quickly run this batch process. And again, what we're going to do is export the data for the file 1, which is the control, and the file 2, which is the treated sample. You can see here that PowerPoint is starting to open. We've switched data files, and our analysis of all of our data files that were in the data list is now complete. So again, the user doesn't have to open up a whole bunch of different layouts to actually analyze this data side by side. Let me see if I can just open up the PowerPoint presentation here. Here it comes. So here's our data that's been exported to the PowerPoint. One slide for the control, one slide for the treated. These are now high resolution also images that can be exported for posters, for presentations, for publications. And the other item that we had pop up here was our Excel data file that went out. You can see here we have the sample name. And another addition to version 5 is that we're automatically putting in column headers for this data now. It's something that we didn't do in version 4. That's now there. So we know that this is our percent gated for the lower left, and we can compare these samples side by side. So again, if a user is going through and they're collecting 20, 30, 40 samples on the CBA Vision, they can simply export all of that data, load it all into the layout that opens with the launch file, and then just use this batch process to export all of that data rather quickly and efficiently. And again, if this is something that a user wants to set up and you're not quite sure how to do it, but you know that it exists, don't hesitate to put them in touch with us because we're happy to work through that. I've heard very positive responses from CBA Vision customers using FCS Express when we show them how to use this batch process. It seems like it's the next level for some people. Some people are ready to make that jump and some people aren't. But you know that that tool now exists. And I think the last thing I wanted to discuss today before we're kind of out of time was actually working with cell cycle data in FCS Express 5. And I want to open up the cell cycle perfidion iodide template that Nexcelom provides. And I just want to show you one of the other advanced tools that we have available within FCS Express, which is actually working with the multi-cycle DNA analysis tool. This is a tool for modeling cell cycle data. So rather than just creating markers on the plot, we can actually model and theoretically model what is G1, S, and G2. You'll notice it's actually pretty useful in the case with this data. You can see that as we change data files between different layouts and different data files, that we'd have to come in here and kind of manually adjust our markers to help make these things match up, which is something you can certainly spend time doing. But another way to work with this is we can actually just come in and say change this plot type to a multi-cycle DNA plot. And you'll notice that this data is now automatically modeled based on cell cycle modeling that we do with flow cytometry data. And it models very good in most cases. Now, in multi-cycle, we have a whole multi-cycle tab now that will show us all the different models associated with the cell cycle modeling. And I find with the Nexcelom data, it's very useful to take off the autofit and force this data to go through a one-cycle model. When we do this, you'll notice that when we switch data files to a second data file, that we're actually modeling this data. The overlays for the multi-cycle modeling look much better than they may have done the first time around. But it's very useful. You notice if I right-click and choose Statistics, DNA cell cycle statistics, I will get the modeled parameters and the modeled statistics from this data automatically. I'll put it down here just next to our table from the template design. And you can see that our G1s are actually very close. Our G2s are pretty close as well. But our S phases that are being calculated are actually very different. And one of the reasons is when we model this data, we're taking into account the cells that are undergoing transition from S phase to G2 and the cells that are undergoing the transition from G1 to S phase as well. And also when we look at the next data file, again, we're going to be noticing a little bit of variation here from our S phase. But again, with the model data, our percent G2s and our percent G1s are pretty darn close to what we're trying to kind of manually do and visually do by eye. And again, all of these statistics, if we wanted to, we can plop them right into the pie charts there. So,
Sean?
Yeah.
Can I have a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question is, I remember we talked about this a while ago. If the cell cycle profile is completely changed by some sort of drug induction, then using the modeling method would be very difficult, right? If it's not a very clear G1 and G2 phase.
Yeah, so if we came in and say there was some sort of some sort of inhibitor, and we actually lost all of G1, right, and everything banked up into S phase and G2, or vice versa, if it all banked up in G1, there are some difficulties in modeling that for the kind of average user. That's the kind of thing, when we want to model this data and people want to kind of take this to the next level of using the modeling for these tools, it's something we can work with that customer for. For a lot of these things where there is a clear G1 and there is a clear G2, there won't be any problems. And it's actually not that difficult to work with this data in that case. If you have something that banks up in G1 or banks up in G2 and we don't know where one or the other is, essentially we come in and we format these DNA plots. And the way that we handle this is we essentially just force the software, we tell it where G1 is. So if we knew that G1 is going to be at 5,000, but it didn't actually exist there, we would force it to go, that makes sense there, we'd force it to go through that, essentially, that region in the histogram. So again, this can be considered a kind of advanced feature for users. But the point I wanted to make is that this tool is there. So if people want to do more advanced cell cycle analysis, or they do want to add some sort of degree of automation to it rather than moving markers around, it's an option that's available. So it might be something to consider for people who are doing some kind of higher end, who want to do some higher end work with modeling.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've been going for just about an hour now. And again, what we've kind of covered today is the upgrade process, moving from version 4 to version 5, letting customers know that they do have credits available to them. We've kind of gone over a lot of the new things that are in version 5. There's a lot we didn't talk about. I tried to just bring up some of the important points that would probably drive home for yourselves in the field and working with customers and some of the new plot types. Some of the things that could be added to Nexcelom layout templates if you wanted. Again, that's a discussion for you to have internally on how to work with that. We went over, again, how to kind of create these layouts from scratch. So if any of your customers do want to create some new layouts, I hope you'll have a kind of at least basic understanding of where they can start from. But you can always send them to us for additional support and questions. We're often visiting customers on site, doing screen share meetings like this. It's very convenient for us to do go-to meetings with people, especially working with software since there's no instrument involved. And again, some of the advanced features, the batch processing and the cell cycle analysis, that's just a little bit of feedback from some of the customers that we've worked for that we're looking for a little bit, looking to learn a little bit more about the advanced features in FCS Express. So I just wanted to show you those today, again, to know that they're in the toolbox. If people are asking about them, you can send them our way, unless you've been playing around with the software a little bit and you feel comfortable in showing it to them yourselves. So are there any questions about anything we saw today, or anything in general related to FCS Express?
Yeah, I have one question, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, if you, I know before, I don't know if FCS Express 5 and a chance to play with it, has 3 options when you save your data, mm-hmm. No link, link, or embed. Mm-hmm. And it depends if, we've had customers that move data from folder to folder and now link is broken, mm-hmm. And then they can't open their FCS Express file with the data. Those features all have remained the same, so there's still no link, and embed, and they still function the same way?
Yes. So those functions there, if I do a save as here, again, what you're referencing is the ability to save this as unlinked, linked, and embed. Yep. It still works exactly the same. For those that don't know, when you save a layout as unlinked, when you open that layout next time, there will be no data in it because we didn't link the data to the layout. When we save a data file as linked, we're going to remember the folder position that data file existed in, and if the layout exists in the same place as it did relative to the data file, we're automatically going to load up that data file in the layout. Now, one thing that does happen in FCS Express 4 and in FCS Express 5 is if you have moved the layout from one location to another, or if you move the data from one location or another, when you open that layout, FCS Express is going to say, we couldn't find the data in the position that it was last time you saved it. Please point to the new position. So what we'll actually do is prompt the user to go find where they moved that data. And if they don't know where they moved the data, essentially the layout will open as it was unlinked. It will open without loading any data into it, and then the customer can always go back and add data to the data list, and then it would pop up. So there are some ways kind of working with that. But if you're working with customers and they're working with one data file per layout, for whatever reason, if they save that as embedded, they'll never kind of have that issue. So it's really a preference to how the end user really wants to work with it. But we've tried to work it out so that we'll at least let you point to the location of where that data file went.
Great. And one more follow-up question on the exact same topic. If you embed 20, 30, 40, 50 data points, Are all 50 data points embedded, or when you open the file, only the first one embedded?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The way that embedded works is whatever data file is loaded into layout at the current time gets embedded with the layout. It means it gets saved with it. So in the case where, see if I have this apoptosis layout up here. Oops. Looks like I lost access to the screen here that's behind it. Let me, there we go. Let me bring this up and cancel that out. Okay. Yeah, so what I wanted to bring up here was the apoptosis layout rather quickly. And the way that this would work is if we embed this layout right now, we have the CBA apoptosis control 2 open. That's the data file that will be stored with the layout. The layout will remember that there was another data file in position 2, but it's not going to save that data file with the layout. If you wanted to have both saved, you would have to have that second data file open somewhere.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So we can link the quadrant gates previously, and we also talked about in this version can we link the linear markers or still no?
We cannot link the linear markers. No.
Okay. All right. So this is still okay.
Yeah, it's still high up on my list of pushing to get that done through the developers.
Okay, so it's
not yet.
In the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline, yes.
Okay, all right, no problem. Just wanted to make sure. Also, if you guys have any questions, you can always contact Sean directly, and he's very helpful to in the past few years to help us at least teach us how to use the FCS Express. So, yep. So definitely you can, contact Sean directly.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Leo. Again, the contact, the lines of support, essentially are support@denovosoftware.com. We'll be sure to get back to you within 24 hours, usually within the hour. And as a lot of you know, when you're traveling out in the field, it's kind of hard to answer emails sometime. So if I am ever a little slow in getting back to you with my email, sean.burke@denovosoftware.com, you can always send a reply to that to support@denovosoftware.com. I'll get that. All of our other FAS staff will get that. Everybody in the office will get that message. So somebody will get back to you very quickly with any of the questions that you have. And again, you can forward all of your or let all of your customers know that they can contact us at support@denovosoftware.com as well. Okay. So are there any other questions today before we end the meeting?
I think we're good. No one saying anything in the chat, so I think we're good. And you got a chance to record our conversation today, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually stop